Hello everyone, I'm here with my next video on the chapter The Snake and the Mirror by Waqum Muhammad Bashir and translated from the Malayalam by V. Abdullah. This chapter is for class 9. This video has got the summary of the story, question and answers, whatever I felt, covered the whole chapter with some open-ended questions like dialogue conversation and diary entry. So let us start with the summary of the chapter The Snake and the Mirror. The story is a narrative within the narrative. The writer tells us the story which was told to him by a homeopathic doctor. It is a story of a homeopathic doctor's encounter with a snake. The doctor lived in a small rented room which was an outhouse. It had 2 windows and a tiled roof. The tiles were supported by gables which rested on the beam, and there was no electricity supplied to the room. The place was infested with rats. One hot summer night at around 10 p.m., the doctor took his meal at a restaurant and returned home. He lighted the kerosene lamp, took off his solitary coat, black coat, shirt and his not so white vest and opened the 2 windows. He tried to sleep but was not able to, probably because of the heat. He got up and settled on the chair and took out a medical book to read. There was a large mirror on the table on which stood the lamp. He sat down in front of the mirror, admiring himself, planning to improve his appearance as he was an eligible bachelor. Gradually, his thoughts shifted from self-admiration to planning his future marriage. He thought that he would marry a rich doctor having a good practice and that he would choose a fat lady as his wife so that she should not be able to run and catch him. There was a sound of something falling behind him, but he was slow to react. By the time he turned around to have a look, a snake had wriggled over the back of the chair and landed on his shoulder. It coiled around his left arm above the elbow. The doctor sat there like a stone statue, afraid to move lest the snake should strike. He even thought that he was a stupid doctor who had no medicines to treat himself if in case the snake did strike him. In this moment of fear of death, he realized the presence of God. God had punished him for being too proud and arrogant. He realized that he was but a mere human, a poor man, nothing to boast about. The moment he accepted his true worth, the snake crawled off and sat on the table in front of the mirror. The doctor got up silently and rushed out of the door. Next morning when he returned, all his belongings had been robbed, but his dirty vest, which was too dirty even for the thief, was left behind. Let us now start with the question and answers. Question 1. Who narrated his encounter with a snake? To whom? Why did he narrate the incident? The answer is the narrator of the incident was a homeopathic doctor. One day when the narrator and some others were discussing snakes, the doctor was reminded of his own encounter with a snake and he narrated the incident. Question 2. When and where did the incident with the snake take place? The answer is the incident took place in the narrator's room after he had taken his meal in a restaurant and had returned to his room at about 10 o'clock at night. The room was not electrified. It was a small, poorly furnished rented room infested with rats. It was an outer room, its one wall facing the open yard. The room had 2 windows and its tiles were supported by gables that rested on the beam over the wall. There was no ceiling. Outside the room there was a veranda. The room was meagerly furnished. Among the few pieces of furniture there was his bed, a chair, a table, and his medical books, a comb, a kerosene lamp, and a mirror on it. Question 3. What circumstances prompted the doctor to live in a small poor house? The answer is, the doctor had just started his practice and his earnings were meager. Therefore, he lived in a small poor house because he could not afford to rent a better and a more comfortable accommodation. Besides, he was not married and at that time, so he could manage in a small rented room until the time he got married. Question 4. The doctor was not a man with many material possessions. Elaborate. The answer is, the doctor had just started his practice. Therefore, his earnings were meager. He lived in a small rented room which was not electrified. He had only 60 rupees in his suitcase. Apart from a few shirts and dhotis, he had one solitary black coat and not so white vest. Question 5. Why was the narrator awake late at night? The answer is, it was about 10 o'clock on a hot summer night when the narrator reached his room. He made his bed and lay down on it, but he could not sleep due to the heat. He got up and went out to the veranda for a little air, but there was no wind. So he went back into the room and sat down on the chair. Question 9. What did the doctor do after coming back inside? The answer is, the doctor sat on the chair and, opening the box beneath the table, took out a book, the Materia Medica. He opened the book at the table on which stood the lamp and a large mirror. At once he was tempted to look into the mirror and he set about making himself look more handsome. Question 7. What were the narrator's feelings as he looked into the mirror? As he looked at himself in the mirror, which important and earth-shaking decisions did the doctor make? The answer is, at that time the narrator, who was unmarried and a doctor, was a great admirer of beauty and he believed in making himself look handsome. He felt he had to make his presence felt by improving his appearance. He began to comb his hair, adjusting the parting so that it looked straight and neat in order to appear more handsome. He decided that he would now shave daily and grow a thin moustache to look handsome. The second decision the doctor made was an earth-shaking one. It was that he had an attractive smile and that he should keep that attractive smile on his face to look more handsome. He also decided to marry a doctor with a lot of money and great medical practice. He also wanted her to be fat so that in case he made a silly mistake and needed to run away, she should not be able to run after him and catch him. Question 8. The sound was a familiar one. What sound did the narrator hear? What did he think it was? How many times did he hear it? When and why did the sound stop? The answer is, the narrator heard the familiar sounds of the movement of some animals on the beam. He thought that the sound was being made by the scampering of rats as usual. He heard the sound thrice. After the third time, the sound stopped. This was probably because of the appearance of the snake and the disappearance of the rats. Question 9. How did the snake land on the doctor's chair? The answer is, the snake fell from the roof of the house with a thud. In no time, it wriggled over the back of the narrator's chair and landed on him. The snake slithered along his shoulder and coiled around his left arm above the elbow. To make matters worse, the snake spread its hood out and its head was hardly 3 or 4 inches from his face. He felt that God had punished him for being so proud and arrogant. The vanity and pride he had moments ago vanished. He felt helpless and frightened and smiled feebly at his stupidity and ill luck. Question 10. What was the narrator's reaction to the sight of the snake? The answer is, the narrator was frightened at the sight of the snake slithering down his shoulder and coiling itself around his arm. He could not breathe for a while. He was frightened, yet he didn't jump, didn't tremble, didn't cry out, as he did not wish to make any sudden movement that would provoke the snake. Question 11. How did the narrator show his presence of mind when he faced the snake? The answer is, when the doctor found a snake on his shoulder, he did not jump, tremble or cry out. He held his breath and became as still as a stone. He knew that the snake would get provoked and strike him if he made any movement, since the hood of the snake was only 4 inches away from his face. Question 12. How did the doctor feel when the snake coiled itself around his arm? The answer is, when the snake coiled itself around the arm of the doctor, he felt some pain, as if his arm was being crushed strongly with a rod made of molten fire. His arm lost all strength and felt very weak. Question 13. What thoughts crossed the doctor's mind when he saw the snake looking into the mirror? When the doctor saw the snake looking into the mirror, he thought that perhaps it too was admiring its beauty or was trying to make some important, actually frivolous decisions, like growing a mustache, or if it were a female snake, using eyeshadow, mascara, or wearing a vermilion spot on its forehead. Question 14. Why did the snake leave the doctor's arm? The answer is, the snake left the doctor's arm because it saw its reflection in the mirror and was fascinated by it. Perhaps it wanted to enjoy its own reflection by having a closer look. Question 15. What did the doctor do as the snake sat in front of the mirror? The answer is, when the snake slithered from the narrator's arm into his lap, crept onto the table and then moved towards the mirror, the narrator at once availed of the opportunity. He changed from a man cut in granite to a man of flesh and blood. Still holding his breath so as not to disturb the snake, he got up from the chair and quietly went out through the door into the veranda. From there, he leapt into the yard and ran for all he was worth to his friend's house to save his life. Question 16. What did the doctor do as soon as he reached his friend's house, and why? Immediately after reaching his friend's house, the doctor applied oil to his entire body, took a bath and put on fresh clothes. He did so because the snake had slithered over his back, shoulder and arm. He wanted to get rid of his creepy feeling and any possible ill effects of the snake's touch. Question 17. What was the similarity between the doctor and the snake? The answer is, there was a similarity between the doctor and the snake. Both of them admired their own beauty. The doctor sat on the chair to read his book, but forgot everything as he looked into the mirror and admired himself. He was oblivious to his surroundings and realized the presence of snake too late. The snake too spotted the mirror and slithered off to look at its reflection. He too was so enamored with its own looks that it forgot the reason why it was there. Probably hungry, chasing some hats. Question 18. The homeopath narrates his experience with the snake to one of the journalists. Prepare the likely conversation between the homeopath and the journalist. Journalist. Good morning, doctor. I'm Ajay from The Hindu. I heard about your encounter with a cobra. Is that true? Homeopath. Yes, it happened 2 days ago. Journalist. Didn't you see the cobra at first? Homeopath. No, the room is not electrified. I heard sounds from above the roof. I thought it were the rats. Journalist. What happened then? Homeopath. Well, I was immersed in my thoughts, but then I heard a thud sound. As soon as I turned back, I saw the snake climb up my shoulder and facing me. Journalist. How did you escape from there? Homeopath. After some time, the snake slithered and moved closer to the mirror on the table. It might have taken by its own beauty. Journalist. You grabbed the opportunity to run away, didn't you? Homeopath. Exactly. I immediately ran away from the room to my friend's house. Journalist. Phew, that was a close encounter with a cobra and death. Homeopath. Yes, I saw death right in front of me. Journalist. Thank you very much for the information, doctor. Homeopath. Welcome. This is the last question. The doctor in the story, The Snake and the Mirror, ran out of the house after his encounter with the snake. Reaching his friend's house, he jotted down his experience in his diary. Prepare the likely diary entry. 10th October 2022, Saturday, 1 a.m. Dear Diary, thank God I am alive. I thought yesterday could have been the last day of my life. I came to my room after dinner at a restaurant as usual. I heard the familiar sounds of the rats in the room. I didn't bother about it. It was very hot and I couldn't go to sleep, so I sat on the chair and looked into the mirror. I was enjoying my own beauty. As I was alone in the room, I made a lot of decisions regarding my future. I heard the familiar sounds from above the roof. I didn't care. But all of a sudden, a cobra wriggled up my chair and sat on my shoulder. It coiled around my arm. I sat there frozen. I couldn't shout because if I made any movement, the snake would bite me. But then the snake saw its reflection in the mirror and crept towards it. I took this opportunity to run out of the room. I ran as fast as possible to my friend's house. I will never forget this incident. Thank you, mirror, for saving me. I hope this video was helpful to you. Do comment. Do let me know what else you want. Do take good care of yourself. Bye.